Hey everyone, welcome back to 143 Math. I had some questions about finding percentages, and I thought I would share with you the way that I teach my kiddos how to find percents of numbers and to find what numbers are percents of other numbers. So it's actually something that I was taught when I was in middle school by one of my favorite teachers, Mrs. Schindler. And I wanted to share it all with you that it might help maybe your kids or help you maybe understand a little bit better how to find percent of numbers. So let's take a look at one of the lessons we teach back in, well, this is first quarter, I believe. So let's take a look. So I want to show you guys how we teach this. And the first thing that we teach our kids, probably the first week of school, is how to find mental percentages. Sometimes you don't need to have a calculator. You don't need to go over to the side and do any kind of math on a piece of paper. All you have to do for these two is move a decimal and divide by 2 in your head. So, which is really helpful for finding tips at restaurants and things like that. So, we teach that you have to move the decimal one spot to the left. Now, you might be looking at that 80 and thinking, okay, how there's no decimal there. Well, it's a whole number, so the decimal always is at the end. So, let me put the decimal on the end to show you. So if I move the decimal one spot to the left, that leaves it at an 8.0, which is just 8. So 10% of 80 is 8. And then I teach my kids, well, you can go one step further and you can divide that 8 by 2, because if you divide 10 by 2, you get 5. So to find 5%, you just divide whatever number you got is 10% by 2 and you get 5%. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. I also then go on to talk about how to find 20%, where you just double what you got for 10%, but it all stems from doing this. Just move the decimal over one spot to the left. So that's a good mental math way to do things. But what do you do when you can't figure it out mentally? Like if I asked you what 26% of 80 was, or 43%, or 67, that's where the football comes into play. So are you ready for some football? I hope so, because here we go. So there's the football on the left. On the right is what I usually give students at the beginning of this unit to try to teach them to get used to having these 3 separate spaces for numbers. So the numbers are, in the top portion, you're going to put your is. We call it the is, or the part. So it's that piece of the whole, that number you're going to put up there. Then in the bottom right, you have your whole, or your of, or as we've done before in some of my other videos about percent of change, your original goes down there. And then this is really important. On the left is the percent, but the percent has to be in a decimal form. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But keep in mind, if I want to put 30% in there, I can't put 30. Okay, I need to put 0.30. I need the decimal form of the percentage. So here's a little bit more in detail other than what the numbers are and what numbers you're supposed to put in there, what you're supposed to do to the numbers after you fill it in. So these on the side here, this right here and this right here tell you that if you have the part and one of these 2 numbers at the bottom, you're going to end up dividing these numbers. And then if you have a number here in this portion and a number here in this portion, you will multiply them. So items smacked together is multiplication. So let's dive in and do some examples. So what is 26% of 300? Well, I'm missing the part. I asked my kids, okay, figure out what you're missing first. You're missing this first part. Okay, we don't know what's up there. It's a piece of a whole, but that's what we're trying to figure out. So then I say, all right, 26%. Okay, I know that goes in the bottom left because the percentage goes bottom left. But I cannot have it as a percentage. It's got to be its decimal form. And a quick review, all you do to turn 26% into a decimal, 1, 2, move the decimal 2 spots to the left. Oops. So then I've got 0.26. And then of 300 means that the total is 300. Now, according to what I just told you about where numbers belong and what you do to the numbers that are in the football, I'll go back one to show you. See how I have a number here and here? Well, I'm going to multiply those numbers. So 0.26 times 300 is 78. So to answer this question, 78 is 26% of 300. Here's another one. Sometimes my students get kind of caught up on this 6% because they have trouble forming it into a decimal. So let's take a look and let me show you. So what is 6% of $50, or 50 just number? I don't know what the is, but I do know that the total is 50. So that goes down here, the of, and then 6%. Now, remember what I said about moving the decimal over? If I have 6, if I move the decimal over 2 spots to the left, 1, 2, I have 0.06. I got to fill in that empty space with a 0. So that is a common error. My students will go, oh, 0.6. No, that's 60%. 0.06 is 6%. Now here we are again. We've got two numbers that are next to each other, and in math and in our football, we will multiply those. So 0.06 times 50 gives us 3. So if this was money, $3 is 6% of $50. Now, another interesting thing when we look at percentages, in the 7th grade, we are dealing with percentages that are greater than 100 sometimes. So let's take a look. What you do doesn't change, it just might look a little different, but the procedure is still the same. So 105%, that's 105 with the decimal point here. So if I move the decimal point over 2 spots to the left, 1, 2, I end up with 1.05. That is what I'm going to put in the football. Now, I'm going to make a little T-chart because you don't want me making total football. It'll look like a disaster, as my students know. So a little T-chart, T for touchdown will do it. So let's put 1.05 because we know the percent goes down here. And what are we trying to find? What is? I don't know. So let's put that up here. And of the total, the whole is 60. Now I'm starting with a lot of examples with the two bottom ones to just show you how to do it. So here we are, they're next to each other, so we're multiplying again. So 1.05 times 60 is 63. But this is typically when I stop with my students and I say, hold on. 63 is bigger than 60. How is that possible? Because if it's totally 100%, it would just be exactly what you started with. And that's when they typically will say, well, hello, Mrs. Lee, it's higher than 100, so it's going to be higher than the original. Good job. Okay, so 63 is 105% of 60. This is another one that can kind of throw kids off, and I wanted to bring this to your attention too. Again, the procedure is still the same. So 0.5 is the percent. Now, I know it's also a decimal, but ultimately it's a percentage, okay? To turn that into a decimal form of this percentage, you still do the exact same thing. Move the decimal over 1 and 2. You got to fill in this spot with a number, so we always put 0. So here we are. So now we have 0.005 as the decimal form of that percentage. And of 90 goes here. Still looking for that is, that part, that little piece. So you guessed it, they're next to each other. So we do 0.005 times 90. And the answer is 0.45. So if you're thinking about it in terms of money, What is 0.5% of $90? And the answer would be 45 cents. Now, we also got to throw in real life examples because this is something you are going to use all the time. I tell my kids, this is something you will use in your everyday life. So here's an example. There were 75 people at the football game. 8% of them had free tickets. Wow, good for them. How many had free tickets? Okay, so then we have to decide, okay, what am I missing? Am I missing all of the people at the football game? Am I missing some of the people at the football game? Or the percentage? Well, this part's easy. I can see the percent right there, so I know for sure I've got it. And the decimal form of 8% is 0.08. Okay, so that turns into 0.08. And then the of is the whole 75. So I'm figuring out, again, the is, the part. What piece of those people had free tickets? So let's fill it in. This was 8%, which is 0.08 of 75. So if I were to answer this question, all I would have to do, you guessed it again, because I have the two bottom ones, we'll do some with the others in a minute, 0.08 times 75 is 6. 6 people had free tickets. All right, so now, what if I gave you something like this and I said, hey, you got this quiz back and you got a 21 out of 25. Now, a lot of the kids already know how to do this because they get all these back. When they get these back, they're like, okay, what's my score? What's my score? So let's think about this. You got 21 questions correct. That's a piece of it all out of 25 questions total. So my question is, 21 is what percent of 25? Oh, okay, so I'm missing the percent this time. I know 21 is the part and 25 is the whole. Now, do you remember what I'm supposed to do here? According to the football, if there's numbers on top of each other, we divide. So when I do 21 divided by 25, I end up getting in this space 0.84. Now, one of the things I try to caution my students on is you better not put 0.84 as your answer, because that's smaller than 1% if you put 0.84. When you pull it out of the football, your final answer has to be converted back to the percent. So if you got a 21 out of 25 on a quiz, you got an 84%. Okay. What about this? Try this one. If I got a 17 out of 23, think about, make a little T on your paper or somewhere near you. See if you can figure this out. I'll stay quiet for a second. See if you can figure out what goes where. Okay. We're missing the percent, right? So we don't know what this is. We know there's 23 questions total. And we know we got 17 right. The numbers are on top of each other, so we divide. 17 divided by 23 is 0.73. And there's some more numbers, but I'll stop right there. So when I pull it out of the football here, so I can erase that X, you can do it however you want with that, but 0.73, this becomes 73%. Okay? So I hope you guys are kind of getting the hang of this. What if it's not something on a quiz or test and you get a grade back on a piece of paper and you're like looking at, all right, let's think about money maybe, like $135. What percent is that of $300? Well, you now know how to do that. 135 is the part, the piece, so that goes up top. I don't know what the percent is. This is going to be left open. But I do know that's a total of $300. Okay, so They're on top of each other, so 135 divided by 300 is 0.45. So, final answer, 135 is 45% of 300. So no matter what, if you've got any of those three spots open, you know what to do to figure it out. So let me see, let's try, what if I gave you something like this? The gardener planted 225 trees in the apple tree orchard. 81 of those trees died. What percent of the trees died? So I think a lot of you would say, okay, well, I know I'm missing this. I don't know what percent is, but then you're like, ooh, I don't know which one's the whole, which one's the part. My suggestion here is just to read it and put yourself inside the problem. Okay, you're the gardener, okay? You go out to your apple tree orchard and you plant 225 trees, but 81 of them died. Oh, okay, so if I planted 225, that's my total, 225. 81 of them died, so that number goes here. So 81 is what percent of 225? Okay, now I know what to do. 81, that's the is. What percent? I don't know yet. 225. So 81 divided by 225 is 36%. 36% of the trees died. Okay, guys, so really when you have anything like this, if you're given the percent, like let's go back, you could even do it backwards, let's say, and if you were given that 36% of the trees died, let's do that. If there were 225 trees, okay, 36 of them died, 36%, I'm sorry, you multiply them. Oh, 0.36 times 225. There we go. 81 would be how many died. Or, even better, if I said, hey, you're a farmer and 81 of your trees died, and that was 36% of your total, what you planted, how many did you plant? You could even work it that way. So, same process. You got an 81 up top and 0.36 down at the bottom. So you're dividing 81 divided by 0.36, you guessed it, left you with 225 total planted. I hope this helps you all. This football way is really helpful. We teach it to our kids earlier in the year and they use it all the time. So I hope it was helpful for you all today. Continue coming back to 143 Math and I can help in any way possible. Have a great day, guys. Thanks.